Hey everyone, my name is Taco Verdonschot and I'll be your host today. Let me first welcome you to the Yoast SEO news webinar of December. Today we're not just talking about everything that happened in the last month, but we're also going to look ahead into the future of SEO. But first, let me introduce to you today's speakers. If you've attended a Yoast SEO news webinar before, you'll recognize this super bright red hat from Yoast. In his role as head of SEO, you can often find him tinkering around. Usually, he's optimizing a website by shaving off millibytes and milliseconds. And when he's not learning and exploring new things, this genius is talking about all his findings at SEO conferences around the world, or, even better, in front of his colleagues at Yoast. So give it up for our very own Jono Alderson.
Wow,
today,
high expectations.
Yeah, and today he is accompanied by a legend I only dare call a geek because that's what he calls himself on Twitter. He's currently the head of SEO for Oda, Norway's leading online grocery store, and in the past, this geek worked at well-known names like Rise at 7 and Just Eat, and for brands like BBC, McDonald's, Weight Watchers, BHS, Gordon Ramsay, and Premier Inn. And next to all this SEO madness, he also likes to take it offline. Offline what, you ask? Well, wrong. Take It Offline is the name of the now renowned SEO sort of conference that he's been organizing for years. But today, we're keeping it online. So please put your virtual hands together for Mr. Gerry White.
Just to mention that it's actually pronounced Gerry.
Gerry, I'm sorry. Yes. With that, I'm getting out of your way. So please, another big round of applause for both of them.
Thank you, Taco.
Thank you, Taco. What a very optimistic set of introductions. Let's hope we can live up to 5% of that, and then we might deliver something vaguely useful. We are going to call you Gary all the way through, though, I think.
Okay, sweet cakes.
Okay, that backfired quickly. Oh dear. All right, so let's do. I need to share my screen, don't I? How do I do this? We're using a new version of our webinar software, which is really, really cool. But all the buttons have moved. There we go. So we should now have. Oh, look at that doing things. This is cool. There we go. Well, that's a lie. We've already started, so we can go past that. So yeah, we had a brief introduction about Gerry, which is quite nice. I wonder if you want to do a little bit in your own words, see if there's anything that Taco missed that you want to fill in, explain this horrendous AI avatar.
I love these AI avatar-y profile pictures. I mean, it turns out basically there's a bunch of software out there, one of them being profilepicture.ai, and basically you upload a bunch of images of yourself and what comes back is a load of quite stylish images. It turns out I look both quite good as both Bond and a Bond villain and various other kind of medieval characters, and also kind of a weird amount of Doctor Who, which I quite like. But yeah, absolutely. So I've been in SEO for years and years and years. I've been on the analytics side, SEO side. I've been building websites very badly, which is why I don't do it anymore. And I've done loads of other bits and pieces. As mentioned by Taco, I've kind of organized a conference called Take It Offline, which is basically an idea of, we stole it from other places, basically analytics places, where we go along and we just kind of talk through stuff. It's more of a bit freedom, bits of kind of less presentation, more audience engagement. And we've been sort of a bit of a reputation for kind of doing it with a drink in the hand, but that's more to kind of encourage people to kind of socialize and talk afterwards rather than any endorsement of the drinking culture.
Nice. That sounds really cool. I've made it to a couple. I need to get to more. I'm sure there's one coming up in Amsterdam at some point, as Simon Freeman in the chat there rightly acknowledges. Very nice. Okay, cool. Right, so today's plan, as ever, same as usual, there will be a recording available afterwards at yoast.com/webinar, I believe. We're going to go through some various bits of industry news. I will talk too quickly and too much, and Gerry will hopefully interrupt me with salient and interesting opinions. We're going to touch on Google, social media, etc. And then, yeah, a little bit of time to step back a bit, zoom out, and think about what the future might hold. If at any point today you want to learn more about the stuff we've talked about, you can go to Yoast. Needs to be a better way of saying that. Yoast. /webinar December 22. All the information, all the links, all of the information from the stuff we're talking about is there. And if the stuff we're talking about is confusing, or you don't know what we're saying, or we're using acronyms when we shouldn't, very naughtily, you can probably go and learn about all of that stuff at Yoast SEO Academy, yo.st/academy, that has a bunch of free courses and intro stuff, and then a whole bunch of others. Okay, cool. Advert break over. Let's talk about the news. Definitely, Gerry, just interrupt me. I'm sure you have opinions on this, which are very interesting. So let's go. So everybody loves links, right? Google have recently, in the last couple of weeks, come out and said, whilst links are and continue to be important, they are a lot less so than they used to be in the bad old days of SEO. And hopefully that means that people spend less time trying to get and or buy links, and maybe more time doing other stuff like content marketing and brand building, right? And all those kinds of areas.
But they've been saying that for 10 years, right? I mean, literally every year they've said exactly the same thing. And I think we all know basically that Google isn't one kind of set of signals. It's kind of a massive mixing board. And every week, every couple of weeks, they kind of turn down a dial, turn up a dial. And, you know, they might kind of go, yep, links are less important this week. But actually, we figured out that if we turn it back up again, the results improve. So whilst links have always been a bit of a strange signal, they've always been such a strong signal that's correlated so well with kind of quality, because it turns out that people historically have always linked to good sites. The fact that, you know, we've been manipulating the devil out of that for the past 10 years, let's go with 20 years, means that actually, you know, it's our own fault that we're kind of making it a bit of a mess, but it's also Google's fault for telling us we can mess it up.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I guess if we started with a blank canvas, we might be able to build something beautiful and true and pure. But you're right, we've got all of the successful brands of today are built on the back of at least some backlink buildings. So yeah, you kind of got a polluted system there, haven't you? It's hard to get away from.
But I'd swear we are not going to get less backlink spam emails or backlink spam LinkedIn, I'm afraid. Sorry, Ben.
No, I saw that in the chat as well.
Yeah.
There is that. Thankfully, Google do say that they are now launching kind of dedicated parts of their algorithm and system board. I love the mixing board analogy, by the way. That's a really nice idea. And now I guess every new system they add, whether it's RankBrain or SpamBrain, is like another dial they can add and then turn up or down, and those things will interact with each other. That's pretty cool. But yeah, they say that they've just launched another big kind of anti-spam update, which in theory should make this stuff harder, which maybe reduces the amount of link spam because people doesn't work as well, so they don't make as money, or maybe they send twice as much spam because they need twice as many links.
Again, I know this sounds like I'm repeating myself, but I'm sure they said that a few years back. I'm sure that half the updates basically said something similar. I guess it's me being kind of like skeptical and old manish, but basically it does sound like Google kind of haven't really said anything new. They've just said that we've improved what we've got. And I was assumed that there was an AI-based system to prevent spam and detect sites buying or passing links for the past, I don't know, 10 years or so. It's strange that they're kind of saying that this is a new thing.
It is. How much of this is just PR, right, for them having to double down? Because I think we've not featured it in the news webinar this month because it was a little bit dry, but there are some interesting conversations around some of the legal pressures Google are under to show that they are removing false information and that they are unbiased, etc. And maybe this is part of their ammunition for fighting back in those legal cases to say, look, here is evidence that we are trying to take efforts to control the quality of the results and so forth. Maybe it's a PR spin.
I agree. Yep.
Thinking of spinning, very closely related is scrolling, I reckon. This is now becoming increasingly the standard way we interact with Google, right? So no more page 2, but the best place to hide a body is some degree of infinite scroll on Google, I guess. I kind of miss the paginated results. What do you reckon?
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because I actually do like the continuous scroll. But what was interesting is that they did have like a continuous scroll at one point, and then they pulled back on it, and then now they're bringing it back in again. It's a bit of a weird one. I think at one point they had kind of continuous scroll, but then they decided that they want the adverts at the bottom of the page, and so they reduced their revenue. Oh God, I'm sounding really skeptical and old, I know.
No, you're right, and this is
But I'm seeing less adverts now when you kind of this infinite scroll at the moment. But yeah, I guess I personally like it because the way in which we now kind of navigate is very much a case of we kind of go, okay, I'm having a look. But equally, I think anybody who doesn't get the results that they want in that first half a dozen results, their next thing will always be to refine the search query. Because it tends to be that if you type in something and the results are immediately bad, we're so well trained to kind of go, oh, actually, I need to kind of refine, I need to change it, I need to alter it. The word that I've used is ambiguous. The word that I've used just means something slightly different to what I meant to mean. And so I'm just going to chuck in another word or change the word. So I don't know how much
it's not a Facebook, is it? It's not Twitter. No. I'm not just going to scroll for hours and see what's interesting. By that point, the results are bad. Like they're way off the point. Yeah, messy. Yeah. Interesting. We'll see where they go. Like there's continued evolution of the results page, isn't there? And it feels like this is quite mobile-y. It's a bit more standardized.
Well, it used to be that the mobile results were so much more richer than the desktop results, and it feels like a lot of the mobile results, the kind of the more entity-based results, are kind of coming through onto the desktop, which I think is absolutely a brilliant thing. I just want to see how it'll impact a click-through curve, but again, it's going to be fun kind of getting those kind of click-through curves back again.
Yeah, and people calculating estimated value and traffic based on where you rank, etc. For sure. Yeah. Thinking of, you mentioned like people's propensity to go, these results aren't very good, I should refine that, I should change what I'm searching for. This is pretty cool. Like a proper interface. Everybody's seen, I guess, something like this in the Google image results, probably, where you can go, okay, I want the logo of this, I want this as a food, whatever. Same kind of feeling for desktop, or not desktop, but for normal search, where you go, okay, refine this for me, help me understand how I might drill down into this. Really cool.
Yeah, so this is sort of something that's been evolving for quite a long time. I love this kind of thing. One of my favorite examples of how search results always look a bit weird was always Marvel. If you ever typed in Marvel into Google, it never had any 10 blue link style links. It was all, everything was everything. And it was quite fun to kind of demonstrate just what it was. But there was this kind of disambiguation thing down the side. I'm going to use disambiguation rather than topics. But basically it kind of said, what are you looking for? Films? Are you looking for comics? Are you looking for this? Are you looking for that? And so they've just been evolving this. I love this because this is actually a lot of the time how my brain works. If I type in dinner ideas, I then kind of go, oh, vegetarian, oh, high protein. I've never gone high protein, but I kind of start to look through it to kind of go, what is it that I kind of want to look through? Normally I want quick and cheap because that's the type of guy that I am when I cook. So I think this is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting implications on behavior and strategy as well. I know a lot of brands will go, we want to rank first for lasagna because that's big and popular and there's lots of search volume there, but it's quite generic. And maybe the people who are searching that are willing to be steered to something more specific. Maybe they do want a high protein one, maybe they want a vegan one. And the more Google facilitates those kinds of discovery processes and handholds people, the deeper those people enter websites into those journeys. So maybe it starts to make sense, where's my camera going? Wait for me. Maybe it makes sense to write content that's more long tail and more specific and to anticipate people and compete on niches, right?
So one of the things that we do at Oda is we have recipes and we have like a little toggle thing which allows you to kind of go, this is for 2 people, this is for 3 people, this is for 4 people.
Nice.
Looking at some of those, like, one of the toggles there is for 2. Maybe we should be writing that into it. Maybe we should have multiple pages. Lasagna for 2, lasagna for 4, lasagna for 6. Part of me worries that we get kind of like that problem where we go, oh, well, we can do this to all the recipes. So instead of having one page per recipe or 1 URL per recipe, we have, exactly, like 20 different ones where we kind of go, oh, we'll make it the vegetarian version or this version or that version. And it worries me that, people like me who have got kind of a certain nerdy side can kind of go, oh, well, we can just make multiple versions of this with multiple URLs. I mean, this is something which we hated in the past, but at the same time, there's a bit of a payoff if you do it right. It's kind of that balance.
Finding that balance is really hard. Like the everlasting question of SEO is this 1 page or 2, right? I've got this focus keyword, this topic I want to rank for. At what point do you split that? And I think not infinitely is definitely a good answer, but the practicalities of it's hard. But maybe this makes it more advantageous to be much more focused and split those out.
Yeah.
This is quite cool. I don't know how well adopted it'll be, but Google have tried to provide a resource that standardizes how they talk about and name all the various bits of the search results. But some of them are not ways that I would ever describe these things. And I suspect that it's not very intuitive for SEOs and people, but some of it's quite handy. Like, okay, a rich result is a definite type of thing, and that's different from a text result. So quite nice to see them taking ownership of the terminology. Quite interesting.
Yeah. I think there was one, I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but there was a couple where I was like, oh, that's a good description for it, where it's kind of an indented result from the one before it, where it's kind of a grouped result thing. But generally speaking, there wasn't anything that was a massive sort of surprise to me. But I do like the fact that it's kind of a standard way of everybody calling something, as long as we all adopt it. I mean, one of the great things about SEO folks is we have our own way of calling anything and everything. I'm trying to give examples here, but I mean, I still call it Webmaster Tools, for instance, and I think it's had 2 iterations since then. But basically, often we will find a name to call something, and we'll pretty much call it that until Google comes along and says that it is actually a specific name or something. And even then, once we got into the habit of calling it something, we're not going to change.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see them try and take control of that narrative, so that they release a feature and it has a name, and we're not inventing stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be good. And then on Google kind of iterating stuff, they launched a dashboard that says whether their stuff is broken, which is quite nice, because the amount of panic that happens when, I don't know, we see suddenly Twitter explodes because some small part of Google indexing or crawling has broken, and everybody's putting their hands up shouting at Google saying, hey, my website's dropped out of the index. It's quite concerning. So as a starting point for going, let's record that, report it. It's pretty standard practice in tech, right? But it feels like they're growing up a bit. Nice.
Do we trust Google to keep one particular place updated and not kind of go, oh, we forgot we had this page over here, we've created a new one over here, and we've got another one over here. Actually, we just tweet it out on this account or this account or this account. There's about 20 overlapping Twitter. Sorry, I'm going a bit of a rant, aren't I? But basically, they've got about 20 overlapping accounts, half of them which are dead, half of which I've kind of recently unfollowed because they haven't tweeted in 8 months or 9 months. And I'm sitting there kind of going, well, actually, all I want is one place. As long as that one place is the place that they update it, it's that canonical dashboards or whatever that every organization has. And I have to be honest, I'm guilty of this. The amount of times where somebody turns around to me and kind of goes, oh, yeah, we've been using this dashboard that you made like 6 months ago. And I'm like, oh, no, I've created a new one since then. I probably should have, created a link to it. But
yeah, for sure. I think historically they have not been good at any of this sort of product management stuff and comms at all. And building another thing is not necessarily the solution, but hopefully we're good. Okay, a few more bits. I'm sure by now everybody is very familiar with the concept of EAT, which is Google saying that there is this kind of concept that runs throughout all of their attempts to analyze and rank stuff, which is based on expertise, authority, and trust. And they've now gone, let's bolt an extra thing on the front of that, which is experience, which is an interesting one, because you could definitely argue that it's kind of inherently part of the rest. And the idea is that if you are going to write about a thing, especially if you're going to review a thing or have an opinion on that thing, your content will probably be better if you have used or touched or interacted with that thing. Like, I can probably write a generic article about a laptop and say, this is a good laptop. But actually, a much better article would say, I have touched this and I've used it for a year, and I've understood when it overheats, and I like how the keyboard feels when that's getting a bit weird. But you get the idea. You can produce better content as an expert who's used the thing. You don't want that laptop yet. Any laptop I reviewed, you're ruling out. Thanks. Yeah, I think this is healthy. This is good, but it feels quite skewed towards product spaces and review spaces, and it feels a little bit obvious, I guess. Can they just keep adding more letters to this? What's next?
I do agree, though. Basically, it is surprising how often you read something and it does feel like it's machine written on the basis that we took the words. I'm not going to lie. There is a page which I saw which was going on Oda, which described what a banana was, and I was like, yep. I'm never, ever going to want to eat a banana when I learn basically all the details about how it was grown and other bits and pieces, the biological one. I love that one from Taco. It's basically the next one is N. I just don't know what they're going to make the N sort of stand for.
Nice.
But yeah, basically, I agree completely that it is worth somebody who actually knows and loves something writing about it rather than somebody who has words to inject into a web page. And it does feel like so much of the internet and e-commerce stuff was written in that way. It was like, we know we need to inject the keywords. We're going to wedge them in.
Which brings us nicely onto this next one, which was Gary from Google saying that 60% of the internet is duplicate, which is a super vague stat designed to elicit a reaction. But I like And that's probably actually most of the URLs that are the same page rather than just literal duplicate content. But Google has a real problem here, right? With a lot of the internet is either low quality or repeated or machine generated. They have to be pickier in what they call an index.
So I kind of get that a lot of the duplication is going to be fundamentally acceptable, for want of a better word. What I mean by that is if you take a look at a product description of any particular, like a mobile phone or a camera or something like that, and then you search for it, everybody shares the manufacturer product description. Let's be honest, you don't care. Once you figured out which camera, which phone, or which device it is you want, all you care about is the quality of the service from the supplier. Will it get to you? Is the price good? Is there something differentiating it? But, by the time you figured out that you want a Canon EOS 1000D, which, by the way, is a very old camera, I appreciate that.
Yeah, very.
It does show my age, but does kind of demonstrate that, what do you actually want from it? And I think from Google's point of view, they understand that actually getting 6 links, which is basically the same, isn't actually a problem if this is what people are nowadays looking for. People are looking for all of this information. So when people kind of go diversity of the search results, they do want a little bit, but actually people want to kind of go, where can I buy this from? Okay, this one's out of stock. This one's actually, somehow weirdly expensive. This one includes a 2-year guarantee, and this one includes a case with it. I'll go with that one. So, these very similar results aren't necessarily something which Google have kind of said is bad. They just all match the intent of the query that somebody's put in, which is, I want to buy this. Can I buy it online? Can I buy it offline? Can I buy it from a shop? Can I buy it from somewhere? But so much of the content will be duplicated. And it is a weird thing that the internet is so duplicated. And I've been preaching to a lot of my clients that we need to make our content, our copy, our images stand out and different. But I'm not totally convinced that that's always the case. Another good example of that is like cinema listings. The cinema listings are all the same for thousands of cinemas up and down the country. But guess what? You're not going to worry that the cinema in Tamworth, which is in the Midlands, is the same as the cinema listing for the one in York, which is the same as the one in Brighton. We don't really care about the content on it. We're kind of going to go there. So if the film's there, and then
the search journey is different, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's why a lot of it's duplicate.
That makes sense. And for a bunch of areas, yeah, absolutely. It's not necessarily a problem if you're comfortable competing on price or availability or location and some factor that isn't differentiation of the experience on the website. But if your business is reliant on getting people to come and read your content and to be convinced to shop with you on something other than those utilities, then yeah, you still have to stand out somehow. Maybe not by describing how bananas are made or like trying to rewrite cinema descriptions, but yeah, you've got to find your voice. Okay, that is enough Google stuff. Let's talk about social media very quickly. Certainly not, I don't think, either of our areas of expertise, but look at this. We've got little flashy things happening on the screen. That was cool. So I don't want to go into too much depth on this because the mainstream media is even covering this, but the short version is Elon Musk bought Twitter recently and is making a mess. Strategic, well, arguably, depending on how you perceive it, it's certainly there's a lot of chaos and it's changing how a lot of people perceive and interact with Twitter. And that is important from an SEO perspective for 2 big reasons, I think. One is it's where a lot of SEOs hang out and share and learn. And it's where a lot of content is initially shared and discovered and discussed. And that's a big part of how journalists engage with content and find it. And that's a big part of how different brands get links. So it's a weird relationship with SEO, but it's quite important. And it's all falling down a bit. And a lot of people are now moving to Mastodon, but that's super inaccessible and quite complex and a bit weird still. So this underpinning foundation of where the SEO industry thinks out loud is just decaying and falling apart, which is all a bit weird. So yeah, oddness.
I like Mastodon. I mean, I haven't figured out how to actually add people and how everything works. But
it's just silent.
So
yeah, nasty. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's interesting. But then conversely, so not directly in reaction to that, but certainly as part of this ongoing theme of every network needs to have all the features of all the other networks, Amazon is now adding what feels like a TikTok thing, right?
Yeah, I quite like this. I mean, it does feel a bit like we've rewound back to the QVC time. which also shows my age, but basically TV shopping. There used to be channels where you could kind of watch somebody trying to sell you a vacuum cleaner for 20 minutes. It was absolutely fantastic. And this kind of thing just feels like it's absolutely phenomenally interesting. And I think that, nowadays, I mean, my phone actually never seems to be very well connected on 5G at all, but I do have a 5G phone, and in theory, I should have super fast connections, and I should be able to kind of go, actually, I want to see somebody talk about this. I watched a friend of mine basically buying a dress, and as she was looking at the dress, there was a video of somebody wearing it, and it made a massive difference to the feel and the look of it. I think, going forwards, we are going to see a change in the way in which multimedia and live multimedia and everything starts to kind of interact with us. And I think that that's something that, will kind of come up. And especially as nowadays, like mobile phone screens are absolutely phenomenal compared with how they were even like 5 years ago. We have some of the best kind of devices in our hands, great connections, and actually kind of a very instant kind of approach to life. So I think that that's definitely going to be happening more and more and more, whether or not it'll be live or whether or not it will be just kind of like videos that are kind of like selling videos or what. But yeah, it's fun. And I think that it will kind of impact sales quite a lot.
Definitely. I think we say every time we do this news slot now that short form video as a format is here to stay. And it is how people discover and build brand preferences and make shopping decisions. And this is a new thing still, and it's mostly still limited to the TikToks and the Instagrams of the world, but it's becoming everything and everywhere. And we say create differentiated content, stand out, do different stuff on your pages. Doesn't necessarily mean just words. And it doesn't necessarily mean just on your landing pages. Like if you can get your brand content out into these ecosystems, then that's hugely powerful. Big deal. Nice. Right. Okay. Some other tech news very briefly. Everybody's favorite intelligent connected home device is hemorrhaging money, right? I won't say the name because it'll trigger everybody's. $10 billion lost. And this sounds like it's generally the case that they expected it to make a bunch more money. They invested a load into the ecosystem and then it didn't take off. And now they don't know what to do, which is really fascinating because I think the Google device equivalent is still doing quite well. Maybe because it's more natively integrated into various things you want to do, like search and calendars and tasks, whereas Amazon's felt quite shopping centric. And it was a bit weird and experimental at the time. I know people have kind of different feelings on which one's which or which one's the best and how it might play out, right?
I have to be honest, I'm team Amazon for the fact that I've got both, and one of them seems to obey me a lot better than the other one. The other one at some point will suddenly pipe up and say, I don't understand what you mean. It feels a bit like, what's the space station thing? Dave. Basically, it feels really like something from many, many years ago. I can't understand why this thing hasn't evolved in such a way that if I kind of turn around to it and say, add toilet paper to the list, add this to the list, or add whatever, it doesn't kind of all work a little bit better, a little bit more synced up. I feel like as a consumer, they just haven't thought about me. And I'm surprised. Maybe things will improve with AR glasses and all sorts of other kind of technology. But yeah, I cannot quite understand how how this device has actually managed to be so bad after this long in many ways, in terms of actually being usable as a shopping experience.
Yeah, it's really baffling, isn't it? I know I have frustrations with the Google devices as well because they've removed a bunch of integrations recently for privacy and kind of legal reasons that they're betting on in the future. And it's just, as you say, it's just not neatly integrated into everything.
Yep.
However, fun toys, really fun toys. Have you played with ChatGPT? We have a new AI thing this week, right?
Yes, I love it. I think this is terrifyingly amazing. The fact that, I can turn around to it and write me a poem or write me some script or write me something. And I think this, as a nerd, this is the kind of thing where we kind of go, well, what this represents now is nothing compared with what it will represent in 6 months' time when things start to get connected, when when Alexa, sorry, when I've said it now, when all of these different things start to kind of connect up, and you can start to use it to kind of do all of those weird devices, tasks, and everything. It's not what it is now, but what it represents in the future.
Yes.
And as we've all played with things like DALL-E, we've all kind of created some weird and wonderful imagery. We've all done this kind of thing where we kind of go, okay, so what can it do? And when it all starts to like sync up, this is when it will be absolutely terrifyingly amazing. And as Taco says, you know, you could have asked it to kind of go, write me an introduction to Jono, and Taco wouldn't have had to kind of spend 20 minutes reading through our bios to kind of create something.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I've been playing with this a lot, trying to work out kind of where it fits. So I did a little example earlier about write a story about a florist who used Yoast SEO on their website to grow their business. And yeah, it pulls me back some stuff that we could quite feasibly use in our marketing material. But where it gets really quite impressive and what sets this apart from others, I think, is one, it's really good out the box. But then also I can go, okay, but retell this as a children's nursery rhyme featuring a monster. And what you get back is also good. And then you're like, no, make it about a mechanic. And it evolves it and it reframes it. And what you get is this interaction and dialogue with this system where you're crafting stuff on the fly and transforming it. And I think this is new. This is phenomenally powerful. And when you look at this as not a tool to, okay, spit me out some text, but as a tool to go, I want to go on a journey to craft something and I want to tinker with it and evolve it. And then you can do some really smart stuff. You can tell it, hey, that didn't rhyme. And it will go, really sorry, try again. And you can interact with this on the fly, definitely, like phenomenal, really phenomenal. So as a writing tool and a tool for exploring and playing and thinking, I didn't start off with the intent to create a rhyming poem about a mechanic, but that's where I ended up because it was so easy just to iterate, such a time saver, really clever way of shortcutting stuff.
It makes Star Trek feel quite feasible in the next few years' time. When you ask the computer in Star Trek to kind of analyze some data and show me something or do something, you know, and we all kind of go, oh, that'd be great. But yeah, it will be terrifyingly good for analysis for everything in those coming times. And as you say, connect it all together and it will illustrate your story for you as well.
Well, this is indeed the great limitation at the moment, is that it's not connected and it's not doing any actual analysis. But Google's version, which we're all kind of sat waiting for, might, because the limitations of ChatGPT is it's not really connected to the internet. It's trained on a static set of data that's a little bit old now. It's not interacting and learning on the fly truly, but Google might. And they've been late to the game on this because it's a bit big and scary, and there are interesting questions around where are the adverts, none of which has really been answered. But if stroke when they launch something, can you imagine the power of that kind of learning and understanding, but then injected with new data, new capabilities? Sheesh, you've got Google plus, truly then. Really cool.
Yep, absolutely agreed. I think there's going to be some crazy, interesting stuff coming out. The great problem, of course, is the fact that the input has to be sanitized. It has to be smart input. We all know what happened when we exposed Microsoft's Twitter bot to the internet, and it became a little bit unruly. Little bit evil. Yeah.
Okay, very quickly, one huge piece of Yoast news, which we're really chuffed about, is our inclusive language analysis thing is now in Yoast SEO Free, which is previously in Yoast SEO Premium, previously in beta. It's now out there and available. You do need to go into your settings and turn it on somewhere in your features toggles, but this is really cool. We're genuinely really proud of this. I think it's going to change the world a bit. This analyzes your content and finds places where you might have been accidentally exclusionary, racist, offensive, ableist, all sorts of other things which you probably don't want to be if you're interested in writing for an open, expansive audience. This is really important for SEO because you want to be writing in a way that your audience can read and access and understand and don't feel alienated or upset by, because then more people are going to read your stuff, more people are going to link to your stuff, more people are going to buy your stuff, you're going to rank better, etc. This is so much bigger than an SEO thing, and we're going to do loads more with it. I'm genuinely really proud of this. Have a play with it. Let us know how you get on. Really, really cool. Yeah, diversity and inclusivity for the win. Okay. We've not finished this one yet, but let me tell you briefly about the next one. We've got Hannah Thorpe on January 31st, and we're going to talk about something about agency strategy, content strategy, something. It will be possibly as much fun as this one, or slightly more, or slightly less. We shall see. Come and find out. Right, cool. Okay, that was longer than expected, so we've not got a vast amount of time, but it's probably worth us doing a little bit of a what do we think is coming up, what's interesting, right? I might stop showing my screen so that we can do it in growing up full face size. Oh wow, I just get there we go. So Gerry, tell me about 2023.
Oh, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think much is going to change. I think very little is actually going to change in 2023. However, what I would say is if we look into the future, there's going to be some amazing shit coming out soon. What I mean by that is the fact that we're seeing the sort of foundations of augmented reality stuff. We're seeing all of this kind of technology, the AI stuff kind of coming together. And I kind of feeling like, 2023, we're going to see so little actually changing. And I reckon that it's going to basically be the foundation for 2024, 2025. I mean, you and I have both played around with VR stuff. We've both played around with some AR stuff. And the fact that it is, why is Gerry so old? Go away, baby.
He's going to be older next year.
Yes. Totally forgot what I was talking about now. But yeah, basically things like playing around with the VR stuff, things like that stuff. It's so good right now, but it's one of those things where it's like, remember when the iPhone first came out? It was actually terrible. The iPhone didn't have apps. It couldn't do video. It couldn't do all of that kind of technology. It is pretty terrifying. But then suddenly, I think it was the iPhone 3GS. It was suddenly good. And I think we're about to kind of get this kind of like suddenly there's going to be a moment when everything becomes good. And I don't think that's going to be 2023. That's going to be 2024. I think 2023, we're going to see a stupid amount of bad production of AI content where people kind of go, hey, look, I can create really bad content at scale. And look what happens. And yeah, it's going to be pretty terrible. But we are going to kind of learn that, it's like Photoshop. Photoshop uses a lot of machine learning, a lot of AI kind of type technology. And, nobody kind of goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to spend an hour or two sort of cutting this out. I'm just going to use the magic wand button or this button or whatever. So that's kind of my big predictions is basically we're going to not see very much change. We're just going to see people use tools badly. We're going to see all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same.
Nice. I can live with that. I think I agree with some of that, definitely. I think we're seeing Google certainly and others laying a lot of the foundations for the next stage. So we saw the release of MUM, Google's multimodal search infrastructure last year, was that? Or earlier this year, which was their ability to take context from multiple different formats and languages and sources and really truly go, okay, you've searched for running shoes, but we know where you travel and we know your purchase history and we know the languages you speak and we've seen these video reviews. Take all of that and truly understand all of it and use it to serve great results. And then we've also seen Google pushing hard on Google Lens coming into the main search results and the kind of conjoined search. What's the name for that? They have a phrase for when you search.
Yeah. When you click, I'm going to take a photograph of something. How do I fix this?
Yes.
That's going to be so powerful. It's like suddenly it's like, you take a photograph of your microwave and go instruction manual, or I'm trying to think of other smart examples, but basically, if I take 5 of these, will it kill me? It's going to be absolutely incredible. Just kind of understanding that, no longer are we going to be kind of typing in things into our phone input bar. We're going to be kind of using the imagery. We'll use the camera and go, okay, go find me. I lost my keys, for instance, and I actually took a photograph of my car and just said lost keys, and it started to kind of do some weird and wonderful things at one point. Didn't get the right answers, but I thought I'd mess around with it. Point is that you're right. Basically, the image search is one thing which I'd forgotten about, but it is going to be absolutely incredible over the next year as more and more people do it. The question is, as an SEO person, how do I cash in on that? How do I do it? Do I just make sure that I've got appropriate imagery added to all of the web pages that I do? And how do I make sure Google understands that this image is associated with this entity in this way? And it's kind of building everything together, which is something which I think that we've been talking about for years, is that entities is the way in which Google's going, and this image search is going to be a very key part of it all.
Yes, and the spearhead of that will definitely happen in e-commerce for a bunch of reasons. One is it's by definition where the money is, which means that there's incentive for Google and people to adopt. And the other is it's kind of more structured generally than other stuff like microwave instruction manuals and how many drugs am I allowed to take. Products have colors and prices and availability statuses. And we already see, in fact, just recently, I think last month, we were talking about Google rolling out new kind of on-ramping processes to Google Merchant Center and Google Search Console, which are going to integrate with WordPress, and also a huge amount of activity behind the scenes in the kind of structured data and schema space, where Google are trying to work out how do we extract structured information from product pages on websites so that we can use it in other places. So we can use it in Merchant Center, so we can use it directly in the search results. And then, also, those products have images, and those images have licenses, and they have authors and information. And now Google Image Search can directly understand which images are of products and what color they are and what available. So all this stuff starts to connect, and then you get some really cool network effects. So yeah, and as Simon in the chat points out rightly, a lot of this is the SEO industry and SEO practitioners and webmasters feeding Google the data they need to build this kind of Star Trek computer. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Maybe I think it's healthy to think a little bit about how does my brand and how does my product stand out in a world where Google just solves people's problems. And maybe that means you've got to be fast or opinionated or cheap or like you've got to have something. You can't just, because everyone else is going to have the same AI generated content, right? Like there's just going to be reams of it. Everyone else will sell the same product, probably faster and cheaper and nearer. So what is it that you do that stands out? What is, like, to your point, Gerry, of what is the SEO play? What is the value of your website? What is the experience of visiting your website? How is that better than somebody just buying the thing in the search results? It's a really difficult question, but that's the one we need to be answering.
No, absolutely agree on that one. Yeah.
Something branding, 2023, build a brand, differentiate.
Yeah, but how do you build it that it isn't kind of on Twitter and it isn't here and isn't there and all the rest of it?
Yes. I mean, which platform do you gamble on?
Yeah. It's got to be more than just a website. And it's got to be interactive. It's got to be videos. It's got to be everything. It's got to be crawlable. It's got to be accessible. It's got to be multilingual. It's got to be, good luck.
Yes, because all of that takes time and energy and money, and all of it comes at an opportunity cost of not doing the other stuff, right? So you've got to pick those battles. And I guess picking those wisely, or at least correctly, is the difference between winning and losing. Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard. And then also, I guess the other flavor is alongside all of this, you've got the death of the cookie at some point, which will break a whole bunch of other stuff, and not quite the death of analytics, but definitely Google sunsetting universal analytics and GA4 being unusable. We're all going to be blind, and we're all going to be tied to ads. That changes the role of SEO, right?
That's the problem. Basically, everybody hated tracking and all that kind of cookies and everything like that, and all the ads and the personalized ads. But what you get left now is generic ads. So all you get left now is terrible ad experiences where everybody kind of goes, well, this is the ad that's paying the most. So it's going to be the I'm trying to think of bad examples, but basically, that pill that makes you payday loans, or that pill, or or for some reason I seem to get a lot of, do you want to see this celebrity looking older? And it's like, no, I never want to see that celebrity looking older. It just seems like it's the same set of adverts all the time now. And I would actually prefer to get adverts based on the fact that I'm a nerdy person that looks at this kind of thing. Sell to me. I don't mind being sold as I browse around the internet, especially if that increases the revenue per visitor for all of the websites that I visit. And so they can have less adverts. So it's faster and it's a better experience. Is it weird that we've killed ourselves by banning the cookies almost? We've actually made the experience worse. Yep. This is it's an interesting time for the kind of internet marketing content economy, right? There is no good answer. Yeah, I mean, Simon's mentioned Taboola. Taboola is definitely the home of the check this celebrity. You won't believe how they look now. Cool. Okay, should we do some Q&A? Should we get Taco back? Sounds good. I assume I can just say his name and summon him and he'll appear.
Yes, it works.
Amazing. Nice.
Yeah, I'm still playing with the whole new UI thing, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. Yeah. And we do have a few questions. As you already noticed, that some of them are focused on age. We will skip those. But the first one is, what advice would you give to someone trying to get more conversations on a company blog site?
Oh, conversions, not conversations.
Oh, sorry, conversions. Yes.
To be honest, I think that's one of those strange things. It's basically I've always had a bit of a hatred of the blog. It sounds crazy, especially as I've contributed and written many a blog in my time. But basically, it's surprising how often companies focus on blogs rather than focus on high quality, evergreen content, the content that people are searching for. Then that content gets maintained and everything else like that. If you start to think about publishing to your website as we need to write blogs, I think it's like almost a failure at that point. And then getting more conversions from it, I think it really does depend, and I hate it when SEO people say it depends, but I'm going to use that one. The reason I say that is, my old agency, we did get a lot of conversions coming in from blogs. It came in because people wanted to kind of answer a problem and were like, actually, this company knows how to answer this problem. It knows the answers that I'm looking for. It's got the information. I'm going to ping them. And we encourage people to contact us. They then start to kind of have conversations with us, and then the conversations do lead to conversions. So it really is one of those things where you've got to demonstrate two things. One, that you're actually an expert on that particular subject matter. And secondly, that they're actually a company that you want to work with and want to deal with. So when I've kind of gone through blogs, 9 times out of 10, I've been less is more. Like I say, when I was at Just Eat, we did use it to kind of backfill missing content that we needed. We used it in a way to kind of go, actually, we want to kind of promote a campaign that we're doing and other bits and pieces. But we knew those would never convert. It was almost just a branding. It's an exercise to kind of understand, we're thought leader, we're kind of the experts on something, or, look at us, aren't we nice? We have got ecological credentials or something like that. But if you're kind of going, actually, I'm going to create a blog to create content and dump content on there, it's almost you're going to lose at that point. So basically think about the content that you need to do, and then think about where it needs to be, but it needs to be good content in the right kind of places. I think Jono's probably got strong opinions on this too.
Yeah, I think people misuse the word blog. I think you mean one of two things. Either you have a repository of articles, in which case, yeah, sure, write more and target keywords and solve problems and get some kind of small drip through from conversion, but you'll never win big. Or have an actual blog, which is content written by a named expert human with an opinion and a stance and some added value, who changes how people think and feel when they encounter the content, which means people go on to engage with it and remember it and share it and print it and tell their friends about it. But then you don't get any conversions, but you build a brand that people care about and remember and engage with, and they come back and they shop with you through other channels. But a blog that is just a set of articles that you've had commissioned because you need to rank some keywords is not going to achieve either.
All right, that is a very clear answer. Then Ben asks about the infinite scroll that you talked about earlier. Does this work for accessible users? So I'm assuming users with accessibility needs, because it's usually frowned upon.
So the reason behind this basically is the fact that people use keyboards to navigate. A lot of the time people can't use a mouse in the same way, and everything gets read out as they do it, or at least different users. Accessibility is such a broad topic, and I'm certainly no expert on it. I've worked with a lot of accessibility companies, and they've kind of turned around and spotted things where I kind of go, oh, that makes total sense. I would not have thought about it like that. So the answer that I've got is I wouldn't have an expertise on it. But if you're basically all the time, if you're tabbing through something and it never kind of ends, from a user point of view, that probably feels pretty weird. What Google will probably do is make it so infinite scroll doesn't happen for keyboard-based users or tabbing users or something like that. So I've got no actual expert answer to this because I've never tried it out with a keyboard, but I think that's a great question.
I see you nodding, Jono.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and one would assume that a company like Google takes stuff like this into account. At the same time, we've overestimated Google before. So yeah, cool. Let me see. There was the age question, the question whether we can ban Simon. We're not, because he actually has a good question. What's going to happen with SEO in the months when everyone starts using AI to create content?
I think I kind of touched on this before, is the fact that if we do it intelligently, it'll be amazing. The problem is there will be a lot of senior expert marketing people who kind of go, so more content equals more revenue, rather than better content. So, for instance, if I was writing an article on, Jono, what was the thing you shared? Basically, it's like, how a florist can use for SEO to kind of help them sell more or whatever. It'll be inspired, but then somebody will come along and edit it, make sure it works right, and it'll kind of it won't be written by an AI. It'll be edited and enhanced by an AI rather than necessarily just one person or a machine. So I think that, creating great content and actually having a machine that allows you to kind of edit and create it and yeah, you understand what I'm saying. Basically, if you use it as a tool rather than as a replacement for a good copywriter, then it'll be great. However, if you turn around and kind of go, don't worry, I've flicked a switch. I've published 2,500 articles on why SEO is good for florists, and you don't manually check it and you publish it into the thing and you don't manage it correctly, it'll just be a absolute awful experience. And of course, what will happen is machines, they're basically reading stuff from the internet. They're reading the content that gets put in. They're taking the training and they're interpreting it. Sometimes they interpret things wrong. There's the classic example where Google itself uses kind of a machine learning, and it kind of creates that one box at the top of the page. At one point, it was going around telling people that horses had 5 legs and snakes had 4. And it's quite famous how, Google had a lot of weird examples where their machine learning had actually managed to do some really weird things. And we found the weirdness because as soon as somebody spots something weird, we all share it with each other. But 99.9% of it was great. It actually could answer a lot of questions in that space very, very effectively. But it will get things wrong, and without that kind of manual user kind of going, yes, this shouldn't be published, this is low quality, this isn't good enough, we're just going to see the internet filled up with just terribleness. Is that a right word? I don't know. I'm trying to think of a word that I can use.
Well, not only terrible stuff, but also just generic stuff. Like the thing I think that will happen immediately is that we, the people who produce content, will fill all of the gaps. So we were talking earlier about like maybe variations of lasagna recipes. By tomorrow, there will be every conceivable variation of every lasagna recipe published on the net, and they will all be much the same, but one will be for 2 people, one will be vegan, one will have different amounts of cheese, etc. That entire query space, for want of a better phrase, will be solved. It will be complete. And then what's really interesting, I think, is that Google has no incentive to index all of that, and maybe even no incentive to crawl all of it, which then if I'm sat here saying, okay, I have a brand that makes lasagnas, what content do I produce? How do I convince Google to even visit it, never mind consider it for inclusion in what is ostensibly a solved problem space? And I think the only answer, other than it depends, is build a brand and have a website and a domain and a brand which is authoritative, expert, and trustworthy enough, hey, see what happened there, to be able to earn that cost for entry. Otherwise, you're just another page of words on the internet with just another lasagna recipe, and Google does not need you. Like, this is the big thing that changes, is Google stops needing us to produce content because that's now easy. Certainly for anything that's not like a new or novel space. And that really changes the paradigm, because at the moment we go, what keyword do I want to rank for? I want to write some content. And now that just stops working in some spaces. Scary, right?
Well, yes. For a lot of people, I think it is. Yes. But I like that, and we've seen that before, that mostly SEOs see opportunity when stuff like this happens.
That's the brief.
And that, I think that is the more interesting part, is how does this thing that scares me, how can I use it to my benefit? And you've given a few great tips there.
Product image will be interesting for a while.
Mm.
At some point, somebody will kind of go, create product images for these 2,000 things, and now we're going to get 6-legged horses.
Yep.
Yeah, and this really becomes interesting when you have a store that sells 100 different types of screws, because then the AI-generated images are complete nonsense compared to the product you're selling.
The other interesting thing I've seen along those lines is when the internet happened, we all went, let's build infinite stores online and we retail 50,000 products. And now we go, oh, actually, quality is important and differentiation is important and really investing in crafting good pages and content. We can't do that at the scale. So maybe we suddenly go, you should sell 50 products, not 50,000. And the most impactful thing you can do for your SEO strategy is to not overreach in a way that we've historically been able to get away with because there's diminishing costs on, we're just going to add another 1,000 products. But now, if we're competing at real quality and differentiation, that's hard. It's expensive. It's complicated. So less is more, maybe.
I like that. So there is one question that has a lot of upvotes, and I think we are touching on this pretty much every month. But Jono, this is for you. Any plans regarding recent announced upgrade of Divi 5.0 page builder theme? Because today page content created in Divi is not the same format as if created in WordPress default editor. Why do Divi and Yoast not integrate that well, and will this become better?
That is a great question that I wish I could answer with specifics. However, the best I can give you is if you would like us to play better with Divi, please do put more pressure on Divi. They need to do a lot of the heavy lifting to make their stuff more interoperable with us and with everyone else. More broadly, we are aware that the page builder space is complex and becoming more so. We are hoping that there's a kind of more standardization on the block editor in the back end, so our stuff works more interoperably. We do have some stuff on our roadmap to improve some integrations with some. I can't give you specifics or timings. We are aware that this is a problem, but it's a much bigger problem than just us. And yeah, making noise at them. We hear you. We know that's painful. Making more noise at them will definitely make that more important on everyone's roadmap.
All right. And with that, we've come up to the full hour, which means that the last SEO news webinar of 2022 is in the books. Gentlemen, may I thank you so very, very much for all the insights you shared today. It was amazing, and I think I speak on behalf of the entire audience, giving the loads of interactions that you've had. So thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, Taco. Thanks, Gerry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Everyone attending, all the best these last few weeks of the year. Well, it's not even weeks anymore. We're talking days now. Happy holidays, and see you again in the new year. If you want to be the first to sign up, there's a green button at the bottom of your screen where you can immediately sign up for the next webinar.
I will come along and heckle.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for everyone heckling in the side there as well. That was lovely.